Hi, this is Paul Palmer, and
Natasha, Todor Cowan. Nice to see you, Paul. How you doing?
good to see you, Natasha. Hope everything's well over there for you.
It is. You look like you've got a lot of conversation going on behind you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting at the moment because there's a lot of team conversations, but team conversations online are strange for me. I find that the well, whether it's Microsoft Teams, whether it's Zoom, whether it's GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, whatever it is, it's a really sometimes I find it's quite a false environment. Whereas I'm used to having delivering training sessions in person. So probably the one that I do most often is the responsible person for good distribution practice. And I find that delivering it in person in the middle of a room with, I don't know, 10, 15 people, then I could happily do it on my own. But when it comes to doing it online and you've got 10, 15 people, and they can't see each other, and they don't see to be able to, they're not closely communicating. They've got the ability to chat by text, but most of them don't come on they don't come on cam, partly because they've not got enough bandwidth. And I find that the dynamic changes significantly, and it's much more demanding, I think, is probably the best way to put it. And to be able to do it online with just one person, it's just not possible. You need a second person to support, to sort of, it's not really policing the communication. It's more about keeping people engaged, keeping them up with what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you can't talk and type at the same time, but I have a secret for you.
Yeah.
So, we got online and we're doing team building online before Zoom in 2010. And what I found was that human beings, when they were doing the tech stuff, didn't see other human beings, even though they were hearing their stories and reading their stories. And it took a few months to get them to see one another as human beings. And as I was working with some of my corporate clients, I had them online. And I have to tell you, I loved getting them online because one of the things it stripped out was all of this stuff that we do in person and signaling in person, personality that comes across. It stripped all of that out and it enabled me to see what they were really like in terms of their connections with one another. The dysfunction came out more quickly, the engagement or lack of engagement came out more quickly. And what I found was what people were doing online, they were doing in person, but just that wrapping paper that was around their interactions disappeared, and you could see the raw stuff in those interactions online.
Ah,
So it, it was absolutely mind blowing. I had a team who had never met, who was high functioning online. And most people who build teams would say, well, people who don't have to do something, who've never met, who come from multiple different countries, that would never work. But they were highly engaged, really working effectively. When I brought them together, there was about a 40-minute sort of clumsy, I didn't really know you looked like that, I imagined you different sort of period. And then the connection and what they were doing was the same in person as online. And then I had a corporate client. We had them in the room, and it was all friendly and everything, but that friendly, but underneath there's something else going on.
yeah.
I got them in the online environment to keep the momentum going of the work that we've been doing. And everything that was toxic about their interactions no longer had the cover up of those in person interactions. And I got to see it very clearly in the online environment. And that allowed me to isolate those toxic elements and to teach them how to engage in more healthy ways with one another because I can see it more clearly. So it's a different view of what you're talking about because so many people are still uncomfortable and don't know how to engage in the digital space. And that takes a different kind of awareness. And yeah, it helps to have when I'm doing training, I've got, my assistant and she'll run the Zoom chat. And when I'm on taking the training, I really like the Zoom chat because I can connect with people one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so, some of that's happening as well.
I find it it's probably quite fake in the business environment, what you were talking about. But I think people can be a bit more real when they're online. I think in some ways that's what you mean. They're behaving in a way that they feel like they should behave because they're there in person and you can see them. But then you connect with them online, and maybe connecting with them previously, even before all the requirement to be separate.
Well,
It's an
yeah,
interesting, I suppose, dichotomy. Completely different behavioral patterns. You don't get the non-verbals as much online,
yeah.
and
Well, right now what's great is we get to see people in their natural environment. So I was on with the managing partner of a multinational accounting firm, and he had his kid right next to him as we were having conversation, and he was homeschooling. And that makes people more real to one another, seeing the relationships that they have, their cats, their dogs, their kids, their spouses kind of passing in the background and all of that. So those are some of the things that make us more real to one another as well.
yeah, that's true, because you actually see what environment they live in. I was doing my MBA last year, and
Yeah.
we met every week on Zoom to keep the project going, the dissertation. And I remember that one of the guys had his kids in the background, and then at a certain time every night he used to kiss them goodnight, and it just happened to be during our meeting, and and we saw it happen every week. And then another day, we had a later meeting because we needed an extra meeting in, and it didn't happen. And I thought, well, where's the family gone? Oh yeah, they went to bed half an hour ago because we're a bit later than normal. And it's interesting because you do get to know the other person in their natural environment without the front. So when I'm going into if I'm going into an office, you'll always see me with a tie and a jacket on, always.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's not even for the other people; it's for me
Mm,
because it's how I feel comfortable in the
mm,
business environment. And I go to places. I come over to America, and they say, "Oh, you don't need to wear a jacket tie over here." And I say, "Well, I do because it's not for you; it's for me." Um,
yeah. So, dark little secret, not so secret. I love fashion. I love clothes. I used to be in the fashion business before, I got into the consulting and the training and, the whole psychosocial thing. And what I love is being able to adapt my attire to the group or the organization.
uh-huh.
So I could be super formal, I could be super casual, I could be like all in between. And for me, the challenge is what is happening in this relationship system that most easily allows me to fluidly become a part of it so that I can help impact these connections that team members have or that might be broken between them.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah,
So it's about fitting in to be able to engage.
yeah, to those connections that you have behind you,
Uh-huh.
right? I call that the invisible space. And people with broken connections don't always see that they're broken or stalled connections. And I believe that my job organizationally is to make these connections work, to have this fluid flow. If you think of pipes between people and
Yeah.
communication going between
Grease
those.
wheels.
Yeah, my job is to get the kinks out of it. And if the wrong outfit puts people off to me, then it's going to make it harder to get those kinks out.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Filling in the gaps, making the connections work, helping the people identify where the communication's not working so that they can resolve it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I like the idea of it. Okay,
And
Natasha. So,
Paul, it's been fun, and we have to
talking.
make sure that our screens don't interfere with our connection.
Talk to you again soon, Natasha. This is Paul Palmer, and
Natasha Todorovic Cowan signing out.
talk to you soon.